Welcome to You Don't Know Vietnam, the show that demystifies Vietnam for global audiences by talking to the creatives, trendsetters and business owners who are taking on the market. Vietnam isn't all rice paddies and buffaloes, you know, as you're about to find out. I'm Ian Paynton, co-founder of We Create Content, and on this episode of You Don't Know Vietnam, we're talking to Tiny Giant, a genre-defying music duo made up of Linh Ha and Tomes. If there's an electronic live act to catch coming out of Vietnam, it's Tiny Giant. Their live sets really take you on a journey with a mixture of electronic beat production, layers of vocal looping, analogue synths, and acoustic instruments. They've earned wide recognition in a short space of time and have toured Thailand, Korea, Taiwan, Belgium, Germany, and Australia. Today, they talk about the influence Vietnam has on their music, being sensitive to cultural appropriation, Vietnam's festival scene, and how they want to evolve their sound and live performances. Without further ado, let's get into this one. Tiny Giant, oi!
Oi!
How are you?
Really good.
Yeah,
we just landed back in Hanoi.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, nice. Well, kind of nice to be back. It's always changing, the city.
How does it feel? You've just flown in from Da Nang, right?
Yeah. Da Nang's a bit calmer, a bit more peaceful. It's also a bit colder or a bit wetter at the moment, so it's a bit of a change.
Yeah. More space. Outside and inside your head.
Yeah.
And when you land in Hanoi, is it like, oh damn, it's Hanoi, or is it like, oh, glad to be back?
Well, for me, like as we were coming down, we entered the bank of clouds, and we just didn't seem to come out of it at any point. It was just like moved from thick cloud to like slightly less thick cloud, but still grey and dim. What about for you?
The Hanoi trademark. It depends on the trip, I think, in general. But yeah, in general, both. It's like, yay, Hanoi. Yeah.
I know that feeling.
Yeah. Love, hate.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
So for those listening, I'm speaking to Tiny Giant, who is actually Linh Ha.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
And Toby.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, Ian. Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, and hello, whoever's listening.
Yeah, no, well,
Hello, you too.
like I said, that you came straight here from the airport makes me feel wonderful. It makes me feel like it's all worth it. For those who don't know anything about Tiny Giant, how would you describe the sound, who you are, what you do?
We were talking about this recently, kind of reflecting on how that's changed a bit, I guess. So we did the first record in 2018, and the term that our friend, your friend too, maybe, Katie Mae Taylor, who you might know from Bow Wow and other such food endeavours, dubbed it ethereal electronica. That was her term that she recommended we put on our bio. And so, we kind of were in that direction for a while, and then it's just gradually evolved and changed.
Yeah, and right now we're in a phase of redefining our sounds and searching for our own our new voices in a way, and our new messages. Like for me, music is very the music that we put out is very present. It's kind of like the reflection of what we are feeling at the moment, and then try to translate into music and then reach out to people through music. So yeah, it's not really genre defined. For me personally, as a creative person, I'd like to take in all of my observations or the questions that I have in my head and in my heart also, and also between me and Toby as Tiny Giant. I'd like to converse and discuss about those questions and then translate it into music. So our music is not really, for me, it's very always a tricky question to answer.
Yeah.
What genre, what is the specific sound?
Yeah, we kind of started with something that was more focus towards genre, I guess, and it was kind of combining what Linh Ha had been doing, which was exploring ambient, and what I had been doing, which was exploring dance music, and putting those two things together and seeing where it ended up. But as we've gone on, it's just become much more concept driven, and it wasn't so pushed by genre. So it was more about what are we thinking about, how do we feel, as opposed to what sound do we want to make.
Yeah, and actually, which genre suits the emotions and the messages that we want to convey? Yeah, it could be ambient, it could be even zenka, like sắc mưa, it's like hip hop zenka, or it could even be gabba if we want to, I don't know, create some rage or something. Yeah.
Well, I really enjoyed your live sets, and they're quite the journey. I remember that one in Hue, which kind of ended in St. Vina House, didn't it? I remember.
That's right.
And it just went off, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it was such a good crowd, right? They were so up for it.
Yeah.
So.
And I've wondered about this, right? And also you got married relatively recently, right?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How does that play a part? I mean, Linh Ha, you said that, you want to take what's going on in your head and heart, converse with Toby, both as musicians, but I guess as a couple and life partners, right? Does that add a layer of, I guess it adds a layer of depth to it, but does it add any layers of complexity? Or?
Yeah, I like, we were discussing a lot about this in our lives also as Tiny Giant and as a couple, as life partners. We don't really call each other husband and wife much. We always think that it's very cheesy, so we try to call ourselves life partner, and I think for the big chunk of our life together, it's been always music. It's been always performing and thinking about music, and definitely, like, in our personal life, music plays a very pivotal part. It's a very big strength, because we can just converse in music, or we can just click and we know what the other one thinks sometimes. But that is also added by sometimes a lot of conflict, because we're also musical and creative individuals with big egos in the studio.
What?
Actually, whenever we rehearse, there's always a bit of spiciness and bitterness of fight.
And like, from my perspective, you would expect that, and mostly in the creative process, you want that. Like, you do want someone who's going to stand up for what they want to do and what sound they want to make. But the problem is that when we walk out of the rehearsal room, then we walk into the kitchen or whatever. You know what I mean? So, we don't have the opportunity of having it totally removed from our personal lives, which is good and bad. So it's not really, I don't know. I guess we'll understand it more as we go forward. We've only just tied the knot, as they say. So we'll see what it brings. But we have talked about using music as a tool to help us process, our personal maybe traumas, and also the relationship challenges that we're going through, to see how we can move forward with things. So, yeah.
And you seem to know exactly, especially in live sets, what each other are thinking. I don't see you talk much on set, and I was wondering how much of your live sets are improvised, and how much, or is it completely planned out exactly to the T?
We plan every second. No, we do plan a lot, because it depends a little bit on the type of show. So we sort of talk about it as the Tiny Giant, I guess delivering the product kind of show, where you have to play the songs and do that kind of thing, which we don't always really do, to be honest. And the other shows, which are more gallery shows and experimental shows, where we kind of don't stick to those structures and we try something else. And so, in one of them, it's obviously more prepared, and a lot of the songs have structures which can be very flexible. So there'll be improvisation in that sense. And in the other one, there's often not a structure, or the structure is much looser, and we just kind of have ideas and see what happens. So yeah, I mean, I probably improvised less than you, right?
Mm. And I think like even if we have a structure set, there's always part or space for improvisation because I think those are the moments, those are the pockets of opportunities where magic could happen, and we could really invite the people who are standing in front of us into our space. And for me, that's always been very special with Tiny Giant set. As you said, it's a journey, and mostly it's actually internal journey for us. But how do we reach out more to people that are also in that space with us, and invite them to join this journey is another thing. And I think those improvisation, those present moments are very necessary. And and even with the improvisation set, there's always an intention. It's not like structureless.
Yeah, we rarely start from zero. Like
Yeah.
we've always, I mean, of course, like when people hire you to perform, then you don't just get up with no preparation, right? You still need to respect that that opportunity, I guess, and like prepare.
Yeah.
Come with an idea.
Yeah. I've got a question, right? And excuse my ignorance.
Yeah.
But Ling Ha, for me, like when I watch you perform, I can see exactly what you're doing and can match what you're doing with your actions and the sounds coming out of the speakers.
Yeah.
With you, Toby, I'm like, so what is he doing?
What's actually going on?
What's going on here? I mean, because sometimes I don't see you with like headphones in necessarily where you might have like a tempo ticker or something. And so and I know you drum, but other than that, what are you doing there?
So the systems that we use, like I have like a sampler and then some other synthesizers. And so I'm basically just working through different structures, like parts of the song, basically. So like this pattern would be for the verse, and I'm working to like then gradually introduce the kick or like start to play some chords and loop that, and then, get that sort of phrase going before you can move to like the chorus or whatever and have some kind of a build up there and move to the next section. Maybe then adjusting the bass line or like playing a little bit of something on the drum pad or whatever it is. So yeah, it's a fair question, and it is like one of these things that I'm always like, it'd be great to do it in a more live way so that it is less mysterious to people, because it is pretty easy for people to look and go, oh, he's DJing, oh, so he DJs and she sings, and it's like maybe an oversimplification, but not totally wrong.
Right. Yeah, got it. And Ling Ha, so what's your role then?
On stage, you mean?
Yeah, and in Tiny Giant.
In Tiny Giant, mainly, like I always, it's kind of like jokingly tell people that like Toby is like the bass and I'm gonna be the wing, basically. So like for me, mainly I use my voice as in the singing style, but also like as an instrument, layering my voice to build a sound wall. And I think the role on stage for me is to really pick up the emotions of the people, and then trying to like work it out very quickly, and then even like there's a chance to do a call response, or there's a chance to do, I don't know, a dance together. Like sometimes we do aerobics together with Sapmur, for example. And basically I'm kind of like the seeker, and Toby is the button conductor.
Yeah, in the live context, that's what it's.
Yeah,
right? Like
but yeah, and like out of stage is a bit different. Yeah, like we I think we kind of have like an equal role. Do you think so?
Yeah, I think so. Like mostly, yeah. Depends on what we're trying to achieve, which part of the process we're in. Like when we're in the ideas phase, then we just kind of share things, and then when it's time to record the singing, then obviously I'm not doing much of that, but and then when it's time to like do the final mixes and stuff, then like you're not doing all of that, but we all still both participate in each part of that in different ways. So,
And what role does Vietnamese music or sounds or instruments have in your creative process and productions? I know I've seen you play like traditional Vietnamese instruments, right?
Yeah.
Is that the same for some sampled sounds as well? And how important is that for you?
It's definitely something that's been a part of it from early on, because I think when I first saw Linh Ha performing solo, he was playing Dan Moi even at that point, right? Which is the mouth harp, the boing, yeah. So that was a part of it even at that point. And that instrument, like some of the Vietnamese traditional instruments, it's quite an accessible instrument. It's one that someone can pick up and have a go at. And so I guess what became interesting about that for us was like, how do you recontextualize this like carefully and respectfully, because many of the instruments have tradition and like technique, and they have masters, and there's a way to play it, and it has a social context, which is quite complex. So we're interested to use them carefully to try and put them in a different context. And also not just in terms of socially, like putting them into like taking them from a performance space that's more traditional into one that's more contemporary, but also putting it into a different sonic space, like harmonically. So not always sticking with the same chord structures or the same kinds of melodic structures that Vietnamese music often follows. So looking at other ways to use those tones and repurpose them like carefully, respectfully as much as possible. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think by that it's like an act of like finding our own Vietnamese identity, because like I grew up in Hanoi, but I actually wasn't born here, and also like a lot of like a big chunk of my life has always been like quite international. I have a lot of international friends, and then I looked at the world through more of a hybrid lens, but still like, I have a big soft heart for like ethnic indigenous music of Vietnam, and I'm not from those ethnicities, but I'd love to. I don't know. I feel like they in me also, and sometimes it's a tricky question to like, how do I still put. I actually can hear those sounds in my head. Like, how do I put those sounds in my head into my music without being disrespectful or being cultural appropriate and all of that? And I think it's a long term journey, and that definition of cultural appropriation or appreciation is, I think it's like ever changing. Like
for sure.
it's like tradition changes a lot. So until what point is still traditional and what point is not tradition? And I mean, and I'm fortunate enough to have the tools to be able to find those answers myself. So and I'm also looking forward to be proved wrong also. Like if someone come to me and say, hey, you cannot use it, then okay, tell me why, and then we can have a discussion about it. Yeah.
Have you had any of those types of conversation to date or not?
Not really with anyone who really have a strong opinion about me using those like the ethnic sounds, but it's more like me with myself. Like, should I use it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a funny one that, like, we do tend to police ourselves quite strongly about that, like, which is good. Like, we need to be aware of it, but I mean, I do feel like I've encountered pieces of music where it just feels like the sample's just like grabbed and just thrown in there without like much consideration of what that instrument is and what it's used for, and what the tradition of that instrument is, and then it's just like hearing one of the sao, the funeral instruments that's played on the street, just thrown into like a dance track. Yeah, it's just like, okay, I'm not sure about that actually.
That will always be my initial thought. Like, can I use it? Yeah, but yeah.
Also, maybe we should. Maybe it is okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think, for me, the Vietnam sounds in that sense has a lot of like influence in my music.
So for those listening then, like, could we dig a little bit deeper into what those ethnic sounds are, and maybe from which maybe ethnic groups or different parts of the countries, or what instruments? I mean, not in, like a long list of them, but just like your most sort of prominent influences.
Like for me, when I sing, and like the most like content space to be singing in, I don't know if it makes sense. Like in my head, it's like when I don't think of anything, and actually I feel like I'm floating on a mountain, and it always feels like it's like somewhere in Tây Bắc, like northwest Vietnam, and somehow it got into my vocals also. Like when I sing like Ngày Mới, like when I sing that song, it's like Tây Bắc sound, and I feel like the sounds, the musicality of that region is like very. It's just like it's freedom. It's bright. It's also deep. Also, the sounds from Central Highlands is it's very communal. Like the gong culture, it's just amazing to experience the like being in that setting, and yeah, I don't know, yeah.
Yeah, there's a great deal of the ethos of that musical, like social context, right? Because it's a community thing, the gongs in particular, and I feel like we kind of want to explore that kind of energy, like where it's musical is about sharing. A musical performance is about sharing. It's not about like you listening to us. It's more of a balance. But in terms of other instruments, there's also the kani, right, from the Jarai people, which is the one that you played on our first on the first EP on the song Air, which is it's a one-string bamboo fiddle with a chord that comes from the bass, which was attached to a small disc of buffalo horn, right?
Yeah,
Which
originally,
you
yeah.
put inside your mouth, and then there's no resonant chamber on the violin. It's just a piece of bamboo. So when you strike the string and then move your mouth and like ow, ow, it changes the timbre of the tone. It's very plaintive and nasal and quite mournful. It's quite a beautiful sound. And more recently, the ding ding, right? The ding ding, also from the same region. Yeah.
It's actually from one artisan that I got to work with and to know. Anh T, if you listen to this, shout out to Anh T. But yeah, ding ding is also an amazing instrument. 15 string, and it's kind of like how do you describe it? A cylinder. It's a bamboo, but huge one.
And the strings are arrayed around the bamboo with a number of wooden pegs all up and down the body.
Yeah.
So they're different length strings from top to bottom.
Yeah.
You sort of have to play it. And it has a big gourd attached to the bottom to get some kind of resonance to make it a little bit louder.
Yeah, it's kind of like round guitar. You play around the body of the bamboo. Yeah.
And so that one is on the newer version of Ngày Mới that we released. So I spent a lot of time, because this is what I was talking about before, where it's like we want to use it, but we're not practitioners of that art form. So we want to find a way to use it that is carefully kind of using it, so sampling it and then maybe working on a new harmonic structure with those samples so that it might be outside of what the traditional tonal structure is. So, yeah.
If someone was going to listen to one track that you would say encapsulates Tiny Giant, maybe right now, or maybe at least in the last 6 to 12 months, because I appreciate it's changing, what song would it be? Would it be Ngày Mới?
Yeah, I would probably say Ngày Mới. I mean, for me, the original one, I think, is it kind of captures Tiny Giant. It kind of captures that a lot of what we had been exploring and what we were kind of going next. It kind of feels that way. And the song itself kind of does what you described as the live set, where it's a bit of a journey and goes on a path, tries to tell a bit of a story. And then the newer version incorporates some other elements and uses them in a slightly different way. Which I don't feel necessarily describes where we're going next, but it's an interesting step.
Yeah, the new version of Ngày Mới is actually like a more it's more than musical project. It's like we were talking to Red and Gom and another friend Don for a year about this whole project, right? The Ngày Mới rework, and I feel like it's music, it's visuals, it's rap, it's concepts. Like the new version of Ngày Mới it's not just about Tiny Giant music. It's like the fruit of a year of talking with those guys.
It's about the process, right?
Yeah, it's about the process. Yeah. So yeah, if you want to listen to our music, then Ngày Mới original. If you want to read more about like our work of process, then Ngày Mới rework.
Great. Tell you what, let's listen to a little bit of Ngày Mới.
Okay.
Yeah, let's listen.
Yay. Này người vô thân
could you talk me a little bit through like how Tiny Giant began? And I'd say you've had like quite a large amount of success in a short amount of time. Do you think that's fair to say?
I think we've been pretty fortunate. Like the timing was good for us. Obviously, COVID wasn't good. I felt like we were on the cusp of. We had a good amount of momentum when that came, and then that kind of slowed us down. Not only in terms of our ability to perform and make music, but also personally. Like, I think for lots of people, it slowed us all down, right? Forced us to reassess. So mixed blessing with that. But when I was just thinking today about some of the shows that we've done, and like we've travelled all over and played everywhere, and super grateful for those opportunities. It's really cool to have been able to do that.
So did it start in literally like just before the pandemic, or was it a bit?
It was 2018, I guess.
Right.
So I mean, I feel like 2018 doesn't feel like at the time. It didn't feel like just before the pandemic. That's not how I would define it. I guess we didn't know it was coming. So,
But we were just like trying to write some songs in 2018, and we finished the EP, like for the first EP in 2019, and we had the EP release in August 2019. I just realized we only have 4 months.
Talk me through some of the live performances you've done since then, because you've, like you said, been all over the place, really.
Yeah, so right at the start, we went to Chiang Mai and to Bangkok and to Thailand in general, and we played at what became kind of our spiritual home at a festival there called Jai Tep, which was a really great space and great experience for us. And shout out to all the Jai Tep if you're listening. And after that, I mean, we went to Korea as well, where we did some performances. We went to Taiwan a couple of times. We went to Australia and played there. We went to Europe and played in Germany and in Belgium also. And what am I missing? I mean, we've played all over Vietnam, of course, and we've been... we've just been quite lucky with it, I think. It's a little bit about timing and a little bit about the market here is not saturated with people doing what we're trying to do, I guess. So people were quite ready for something a bit different at that time. Yeah.
Do you think there's something to be said for, not only the energy that you bring in live sets, but also where you're coming from, Vietnam, with the influences that you've got, the instruments that you're using, the combination of your experiences?
It's the reason why
It's become, like I would say, quite successful in a short amount of time.
I think, it's definitely like there's a lot of different elements that would that could give us the opportunities that we had.
Sure.
Yeah, coming from Vietnam, it's a big thing, and also like for Tiny Giant, it's always, for me personally, it's a space where I could really look into like the identity of who I am. It's not really about the music sometimes. It's like, so who am I, and where am I, and what am I doing, and translate into music. It's not about like running after trend or something. It's very raw sometimes. Yeah.
For sure. But yeah, just to add to that, like, I do think that as we were emerging, and even now, like eyes are on Vietnam on the international stage, really, because as we were discussing briefly before, I don't think that people really understand Vietnam fully, and people are really curious about it. And as soon as some kind of cultural product comes out, people are like, oh, okay, this is something that I didn't expect or didn't know existed. So people are quite drawn to that, I think. Yeah.
I mean, it's full of surprises, isn't it, Vietnam?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking the other day about what would I do if I went back to Australia? Like, what would my life be like? It's like, it'd be a bit boring, to be honest.
Predictable.
Yeah, there's so many surprises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a bowl of bун지요, like so many elements, or like bowl of pho.
All in balance.
Yeah, all in balance, but like so many different flavors.
I love how you went for bunzil. I mean, it could be any Vietnamese dish, right? It's so complex and balanced. But you went for bunzil.
Well, we're in Hanoi now. So,
Always a Hanoian. Always some bun in my mind.
Yeah. I do like bun, but I'm always hungry about half an hour later.
Yeah, it's true. It's a bit too delicate. Tiny.
I was going to ask you about Vietnam's festival scene, because it seems to me like it's been trying to pop off for quite a long time. Obviously, there was Quest Festival, RIP, and then obviously COVID hit. But I've seen a lot more things happening in caves, you know, in sort of countryside, all up and down Vietnam, on beaches. Talk me through Vietnam's festival scene a little bit compared to perhaps other festivals in the region.
Yeah, look, I think it's trying to come back pretty hard. Yeah, if we kind of wind back the tape to when Quest was just shut down so suddenly, it felt like at that time a lot of people felt confident to do something like that, you know, and things were really growing, and it felt like things were really stabilizing, and so there was a lot of parties developing. There was the Reggae Beach Party, right? The one, what was it called? The one down in Saigon, in Guinea, and around that region. There was Vibe Nation, right? And I think the Coracle Festival had emerged at that point also. There was some other stuff going on, which I can't remember the names of, but it did feel like after COVID shut down that people were very cautious to start again. And that started to really drop away now with some of the, you know, like with Bloom, with the guys from Diffused Mood here in Hanoi. They threw that party recently, and then Coracle's back again. Now the Vibe Nation party has evolved into Secret Weekend, and there's a lot of stuff happening down in Phu Quoc all the time.
Studio Adventure.
Studio Adventure is
the
massive,
Central.
of course.
Yeah.
I feel like Studio Adventure never really went away. They managed to maintain, and of course Savage putting on their parties in the cave as well. Which seems to be happening more and more regularly.
Yeah.
So I would say there's a lot going on, and the festival scene's beginning once again to really grow rapidly. But it is, at the moment, primarily dominated by DJs, you know, by DJ lineups. So in terms of live music, that part is still growing and developing again. You know.
There's still some festival type events that's focusing on live music, like Hoi, like it's more like local run Hoi, or I don't know, like there's a lot of like gatherings. It's not really a festival, but like it's like a long maybe like, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours of just live music, but maybe more like in the south. Yeah,
so I guess this is more the local usage of the term festival, right? Like when we think about festivals in the West, we have a pretty narrow view of what that means. It's like going to a field for 2 days and like listening to bands from like 11 a.m. till 11 p.m. and then listening to DJs from 11 p.m. until 11 a.m. rinse, repeat. So I think it's very actually important to mention what you're talking about. There are huge gatherings that are happening all the time, which are well outside that paradigm.
Yeah. What was your most memorable performance in Vietnam, would you say?
Probably at a festival. Yeah. What's yours?
I mean, in Vietnam, gosh, there's been so many. I mean, it was pretty cool to play on the Golden Bridge, on the Go Vang, for the United We Stream set in Da Nang, which actually the performance was like super difficult, and it wasn't a great day, but the overall, I think the overall experience for the viewer is quite good, and so it's been something that I reflect on happily. But also when we did play at Vibe Nation back in, that must be 2019, I guess. We went down there with with Morgan and those guys and Pierre and those guys who booked those events, that was actually a really interesting time because they had a limited number of bands in Saigon and they had a lot of DJs. And so we got a chance to play on the Sunday, like right at the end. And it was like everyone was pretty rinsed. But we kind of managed to gather the energy of everyone. And it just was a really nice feeling. Like, you know.
Yeah. For me, it was probably at the cancelled Quest.
Yeah, the only band to perform at cancelled Quest, right?
Yeah, we got stuck. We got stuck on the side. It was probably only like 100 of us, where everyone else is outside, and maybe 2,000 people outside of the door trying to get in. And yeah, it was quite devastating inside. And then it got to the point that we're not going forward, and everyone is very sad and just like no more spirit. And then I just had this crazy thought, like, what if I would just sing, because like there was actually cops there, and then I think I tried to talk to the police, like, maybe can I just sing, and then he said yeah, okay, and then I sang a bit of like my solo stuff, and then after a while Tiny Giant came on, and then I think there were a bit of like maybe 20, 30 people of us. And
yeah, this wasn't on the stage, you know. We weren't allowed to plug in the sound
stage.
system. This was just like under the
shed.
Longhouse in the, you know.
That's so you, Ling Ha. You know, like being there in the moment and going, right, how do we make the most of this, and how do we gather everyone and generate some energy. That's what I like about your sets, you know. And I think, like you said, it's all about being present. That's what I think.
I try to be, It's just difficult sometimes because, like, with performance, or like putting up with an expectation that you're gonna deliver, like there's a lot of things in your head also, and sometimes you just need to learn how to keep the noise there, not even out, just there, just live with the noise, and the noise and your music, or both.
Is there anyone that you're really excited about at the moment in terms of musically in Vietnam?
Yeah, for me, Trần Uy Đức. Đức is a very interesting artist, experimental, very groundbreaking, just thinking outside of the box. Yeah, and a very crazy vocalist, and just the charisma on stage of Đức is just like whoa. Yeah, so watch out for Trần Uy Đức.
Good shout. Yeah, I mean, I guess there's so much going on, but in terms of recently, I mean, I was taking a listen again to the Saigon Super Sound, the 3rd edition that came out, which I think that project's so interesting because I feel like there's such a treasure trove there, and I feel like it's quite, I don't know, like not neglected, but just like there's still growing appreciation for what that means for people in Vietnam. And it's funny because some of the music, it is so heavily influenced from other cultures, but still is so Vietnamese. There's something in it. There's this beautiful balance, which I find really interesting.
Yeah, maybe you should tell the audience what Saigon Super Sound is.
Oh, right,
Not a lot of people know.
People might not know about that. Yeah, so Saigon Super Sound was a project, these 2 chaps, I believe, who have been digging through the crates, finding these recordings of music basically from the 60s and 70s, mostly from the 70s, I think, and digging up classic Vietnamese like rock and psychedelic rock and these kind of funky, weird tunes, and just giving them a bit of spit and polish, and remastering them and sorting them out and re-releasing them on vinyl. They've just done the 3rd edition, so if you haven't found that, I would recommend a listen.
Yeah.
And for me, that kind of goes hand in hand with the Saigon Soul Revival, of course, who are just so fun and just such a great act.
They seem to have come back.
Like, with a vengeance, yeah. They seem to be booking shows like crazy at the moment, which is great.
Really?
Yeah.
Great. So what are you most excited about for Vietnam?
For Vietnam.
Yeah. I've been thinking a lot about what the future's going to look like in Vietnam. But what I'm excited about is the new spaces that are emerging for maybe voices that haven't had as much airplay. So people in marginalized communities who haven't had an opportunity to express themselves either creatively or just in a general sense.
What sort of platforms and spaces do you mean?
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking about some types of performance spaces. So, for example, in Saigon, there's like just as an example, there's the Gender Funk crew, and is it House of Illusion is the other one, I think. So that's a platform that's supporting people who identify on different points in the gender spectrum, and also they put on drag shows and allow people to express that kind of, you know, what they're exploring with their gender identity, just as an example. But there's also, you know, new types of performance spaces, like you collaborated with Good Apple in Saigon, and they did a show with you, which was like an improvised jam show, whereas actually normally it's kind of a club, so to speak. So, you know, people are willing to try and support something that's a bit different. And so that's cool, you know. There's people who are involved in the scene now who aren't just focused on the financial gain of the process of like running a bar, running a club, that kind of thing.
They still have to do that, but I think with more of an open-mindedness
But I mean, I think what
or
they're
tolerance.
yeah, for sure. What they're realizing is that they can do it, like without having to kowtow to the greatest,
Yeah, that's true.
what they perceive as being the greatest need or greatest desire of the audience.
I've always liked that about Vietnam, and I can only really speak from Hanoi's point of view, but like people seem so open to collaborate, you know, and it's not all for commercial gain, it's literally to be creative, to do something collaboratively. I love that about the community in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And what about you, Linh Ha? What are you most excited about for Vietnam? It's a pretty tough question.
It is a tough question.
It's a good question.
In the terms that, because I'm not sure if I could predict it well, where Vietnam is gonna head to, but I can only hope for, more tolerance towards differences, because I think Vietnam is quite a complex society. There's a lot of very different generations living right like next to each other or in each other, or there's a lot of I don't know, interwoven relationship going on. So I just hope that, or I wish that people are gonna go ahead with more willingness to listen to the others and to the different people than you, and accept that those are the differences, and which is different, and as long as they don't hurt you, you don't hurt them, then we can live in peace. And I really hope for that, and tolerance and acceptance.
Open-mindedness.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you finally, you know, what I love is just how you seem to be continuously in motion. Things are changing and you're present in the moment. And that means that, you know, our ideas, our hearts and minds and music is changing and evolving. But what does the next kind of year or the not too distant future look like for Tiny Giant? What have you got planned?
Well, in the next 6 months, we've got some releases that we're just finalising. It's kind of an attempt to bookend part of a chapter that we sort of, in a way, kind of finished already. So some songs that we performed a lot, and we want to just finalise the recording so we can release them and put them out into the world so people can enjoy those songs they might have heard in their own time. And then move towards some songs which have newer concepts that we've been discussing and exploring. So we're going to work on those and finalize those over the next 6 months. And then after that, we're aiming to develop just a new approach for how we perform and what it means for us to do a performance, basically. So to try and change the relationship between audience and performer, and to try and find a new way to do what we've been doing. That's my understanding. How would you say?
Yeah, same. Yeah, I'll, like would like to challenge the way of performing a bit, because like for me personally, it's the concept of a stage and performer and audience. I always try to avoid using those words. I don't know why. Maybe it's just like I should think more about it, why that I don't want to use those words. And for me, I've always been more drawn to break those boundaries between the what's the word, spectators and the performers, or the one who's sending out stuff. And for me, I think even like for my solo project, it's like the next step. I want to create more of a world where people can step in and we experience it together.
Yeah, and to find a way to customize that for each crowd, basically, because it does. I see these. I mean, we all see these bands who they have these songs that they write and they're big hits, and then they spend 10, 20, 30 years touring around playing these songs, and for me that just is not an attractive idea. I don't want to go around playing the same songs in the same structure over and over and over. So how can we make that personal for each audience, and how can we create something that allows people to feel like they've participated in something, not just attended something.
Actively attending a concert, I guess.
And so the key word is collaboration, really, which has been the key word for us since COVID kind of struck us, where it was like we need to reach out to other people so we can stay alive.
But even before that, we were also collaborating. Like for example, our EP release, we collaborated. Like we invited I think 4 or 5 dancers, and then tomorrow one of the dancers is gonna collaborate with us. Like it's kind of like a round, like
Perfect circle.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty exciting for me, at least, because like I said, when I've been at your shows, I feel like you do a good job with that anyway. So to lean into that more, I think that can only be a good thing. Even more memorable for the audience, if we can call it.
Oh.
The audience, yeah.
For the other humans.
The other humans.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to that for one.
Great.
And your new releases as well.
Great, we'll put you on the guest list.
Yes, please do.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I keep me posted, and I'll be sure to link, your materials to our audience.
Please.
To our audiences on our website. And where can people find you?
We're on all your usual platforms. You're on your YouTubes, on the old Spotify's there, and
Tiny Giant Hanoi.
Bandcamp, Instagram, all the things.
All the things.
All the things. We do it all.
But if you're interested, Bandcamp's a good spot because they are fair with artists.
Yeah.
Or if you want to socialize with us, then Instagram, Tiny Giant Hanoi.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks again for coming in. It's been great to see you.
Thank you so much
As
for having
always.
us. Yeah.
Absolutely. Lots of love.
You're one of the Hanoi faces that whenever we go back, it's like, it's good to be in your space. Thank you.
Likewise. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Much appreciated. Thanks, man.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Enjoy Hanoi.
Yeah.
You've been listening to You Don't Know Vietnam. I'm Ian Paynton from We Create Content. I'd like to thank DJ Jase from the Beats Saigon for the soundtrack, and to you for making it all the way to the end.